The world saw Elara as a shadow, a quiet, unassuming woman who walked with her head down and lived her life in the periphery of her husband's loud, arrogant world. Mark thought he had tamed her. He told his friend she was a perfect wife because she never talked back and never stood up for herself. But Mark's ego was a blindfold. He didn't know that Elara's silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a vow. He didn't know that for 20 years, she had been trained in the Sun-style internal arts, a lethal form of Kungfu designed to turn an opponent's strength into their own destruction. Tonight, Mark is going to push her too far. If you want to see more stories of hidden masters, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. To understand the fire that is about to ignite, you have to understand the heritage Elara was hiding. Her father was the last of the Iron Palm Masters. He raised her in the high, cold air of the mountains, teaching her that true power is never loud. She could shatter a brick with a light tap, but she chose to use those hands to cook and clean. When her father passed, he made her promise never to use her poisoned hands for violence. For years, she kept that promise. Even when Mark's insults turned into shouting matches, and his shouting turned into something darker, she remained still. If you think she has been patient for long enough, hit that like button and subscribe for more. The marriage was a cage, but it was a cage Elara had built for herself. Mark, a man who measured his worth by how much he could control others, viewed her calm nature as a lack of spirit. He began to treat her like furniture, something to be used and kicked. Elara endured it all, waking up at 3 a.m. every morning to practice her forms in the dark basement. Her movements were a blur of lethal precision that no one would ever see. She was faster than a strike of lightning and more silent than the falling snow. We're just getting started. So subscribe now to see the full transformation. The clock on the wall strikes midnight. The front door bursts open, and the smell of whiskey floods the hallway. Mark stumbles in, flanked by Jax and Leo, two men who believe that cruelty makes them kings. They find Elara in the kitchen, clearing the table in the dim light. Mark demands she cook a feast for his drunken friends. When she quietly explains that it is late, Mark feels his authority threatened. The air in the room shifts. It becomes heavy, charged with a sudden violent electricity. Are you ready for what happens next? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Jack sneers, egging Mark on. Your woman is losing her touch, Mark. Maybe she needs a reminder of who runs this house. Mark, fueled by liquor, lunges forward. His heavy boot catches Elara in the ribs, sending her crashing into the cabinets. A normal woman would have broken a bone. Elara simply absorbs a force, her chi protecting her organs. But then comes a slap. Jack steps in and strikes her across the face. As her head snaps to the side, she sees her father's funeral portrait shatter on the floor. In that moment, the vow of peace dies. The dragon is awake. Don't miss the moment of impact. Subscribe to the channel today. Elara doesn't scream. She stands up in one fluid, terrifyingly calm motion. The slumped housewife is gone. Her spine is a rod of tempered steel. Mark reaches out to grab her hair, but his hand never finds its target. With a movement so fast it defies the human eye, Elara's fingers find a nerve cluster in Mark's wrist. A sharp crack fills the room as she applies the dragon's claw grip. Mark drops to his knees, his arm paralyzed. Jax and Leo freeze. They don't realize they are no longer in a kitchen. They are in a chamber of pain. If you love seeing justice served, subscribe and join our community. Leo, the largest of three, charges her with a roar. Elara doesn't move until he is inches away. She steps into his center, her palm striking his solar plexus with the vibrating palm technique. The sound is a dull thud, but the internal shock wave sends Leo flying back to the glass table. Jax pulls a knife, his hand shaking. Elara looks at him, her eyes cold. You think the blade makes you dangerous? She whispers. Before he can respond, she is inside his guard. Her strikes are surgical. 3 hits to the joints, 2 to the pressure points. The knife clatters the floor as his legs give out. If you're still here, you know this is getting intense. Subscribe now for the final reckoning. Mark tries to crawl toward the door, his bravado replaced by a primal, shaking terror. He watches as the woman he thought he owned moves like a ghost. Elara doesn't use anger. She uses physics. She moves through the living room, dismantling these men piece by piece. She shows them the difference between a bully and a master. Every time one of them tries to rise, a light tap from her toe sends them back into the dark. She is the storm they invited into their lives. Help us reach more people by subscribing and liking this video. The fight, if you can even call it that, is a masterclass in justice. Elara explains each move as she makes it. The 7-star strike for every night he came home late. The whirlwind kick for every time he made her feel small. By the time she is finished, the 3 alphas are huddled together on the rug, weeping. They aren't just hurt. They are fundamentally broken. They realize that for 3 years, they have been bullying a woman who could have ended their lives in a heartbeat. This is the power of the hidden master. Subscribe to see more stories like this one. As the sun begins to peek over the horizon, Elara stands over her husband. She isn't breathing hard. She looks down at the man she once tried to love and drops a single envelope on his chest. It contains the divorce papers she had signed months ago. "The woman you married is dead," she tells him. "And the master you just met, you should pray she never sees you again." She walks out the door, leaving the house and her old life behind. She is no longer the shadow. She is the light. Thank you for watching this journey. Subscribe, like, and comment. I am a master to show your support. We will see you in the next story.